This is gonna be a quick video on the Kraton EXB. This one, as you can see, has been used. It's not a new car. It's been in service for probably 2 years, hence all the upgraded parts on it. We'll do a quick overview of the car, look at what the extras are, the upgrade parts, and then we have something to compare it with. So, body, standard body. You can see it's been through some adventures. So this is actually my second body on this car. So the first one I split in half. Anyway, so pretty much standard, as you can see from that side. The upgraded parts, we start here in the front side. I have this RPM bumper, definite upgrade for this car. It's much bigger than the standard one. It's also much stronger. I've hit it a couple of times really hard, and it definitely protects the car on the front. It helps a lot. We go to the bulkhead, the shock tower, that is still standard. I've bent it a couple of times, the front one as well as the back one. It's aluminium, so you can bend it back. The plan is to upgrade them in future to carbon fiber ones. So we'll see if they are any better or worse. That will be an experiment, because we are going to produce them ourselves. On this side and this side we have the RPM lower and upper control arms. Didn't need them, but it was one of those I would like to have them. I still have the old ones as a backup if something happens, but as far as I know, these RPM control arms are really bulletproof. On the wheels end, I have the Proline trenches. That's the 3.43 by 6.89. They do not have a massive offset. As you can see from that side, they do not have a massive offset. So in fact, the car is a little narrower than with the standard wheels, but I do love these wheels. I think this is probably the best upgrade I've ever done on this car. These wheels I've probably had for 2 years and they still look very new. The only thing I've done to the front ones was doing the strapping, because they do tend to balloon a little bit, but that was with a almost open center diff. Since I've replaced the fluid inside the center diff with silicone earplugs, I do not have that issue anymore. On the inside of the front wheels, you will see that these knuckles have been changed to aluminum ones, or not the standard one, it's the upgraded part, same as or similar as the ones that come EXB. They are from HR. These little balls here on the inside, they tend to wear out, and the screws with the O-ring that keep them tight, that was the original issue that I had with them, and that's why I replaced them. On the rest of the car, you will see that the steering servo is still the stock steering servo, but the bracket where the steering servo bolts into, that has been replaced. The standard one on these cars are plastic. They do flex a lot, and they tend to have an effect on your steering. This is not the standard ESC. This is a Spectrum ESC. It's an 8S ESC, but I still only use this on 6S. Reason for that, like I said before, we are in a quite high temperature environment, so I like to run with ESCs that are capable of a little bit higher amps, and that helps them to cope with the heat. The motor in here, that is an easy run 4274 2200 kV hobby wing motor. It is more than what is needed for this car. Let's quickly look at the back. As you'll see, there's something on this car that they do not come standard with, and that is the wheelie bar. With the power in this car, even with the stock motor and stock ESC, they tend to wheelie a lot, and to prevent that, especially doing backflips or half flips actually, you tend to land on your wing at the back, and that also bends the bracket for the wing as well as the shock tower. same as in the front. The duff holder also aluminium, and the control arms, lower control arms, are from the RPM. So the wheel carrier on the back is also aluminium ones. That is the same manufacturer as the front ones. That is it for this car. So now we know kind of what is standard on these and what I've upgraded on this one.
Okay guys, so this is one of the new RCs that's joining our little RC family. We are going to look at the differences between the EXB, the roller, which means it comes with no electronics, no motor, no ESC, no servo, no receiver. You have to fit all your own electronics. And we're going to look at why we chose the EXB over the original Kraton. And we're going to look at some of the changes they've made, the upgrades they've made, and why we think this is a worthwhile car to buy. Depending on how much experience you have with different RCs, you kind of tend to develop a lean towards a specific brand or specific type of car. Between all of us, we've now owned quite a few different RCs, and we have gravitated towards a certain type of car, and we've kind of moved away from a different type of car. Currently we have everything from an X-Max to a DBXLE to a Superbaj Array to a UDR to a Vorza, a Max with a wide kit on it. The Kraton you guys just saw with all the modifications that was done to that to make it a really capable, really reliable car. A e-Revo 2.0 that's highly modified, a Low C3 XLE, a Baja 5B with a electronic brushless conversion on it. So we've owned many different cars now, and we've seen what type of problems we get with the different cars, what fails, what lasts, what works and what doesn't. And for exactly that reason, we've all kind of come to the conclusion that this might be some of the best value for money you can spend on an RC car if you are not a novice in RC. If you can do a bit of your own wrenching, you can fit your own electronics, you can do your own setup, then we really believe that this right here might be one of the best 8th scale bashing, off-roading, hooligan, backflip, front flip, jump over and on top of anything truck that you can buy. Okay, so that being said, we're going to unbox this. We're going to look at everything they've upgraded on this car that makes it a EXB, the Extreme Bashing Edition, and everything that made us think that this is a worthwhile purchase in 2023, having owned so many different RC cars. Okay, so let's get this out of the box. First of all, let's look at what Arrma says makes this car worthwhile. Starting over here, let's look at some of the things that they've upgraded that Arrma thought was a good idea, that was needed to turn this into an Extreme Bashing edition. So we start off with the front and rear shock towers. On the Kraton that you just saw, we've already done multiple repairs on those towers. We've bent them quite a few times, and we are now going to prototype our own shock towers out of carbon fiber to see how that works. This bumper on the front here is upgraded, stiffened, strengthened significantly. If anyone watches Kevin Talbot, he talks about this specifically as well, the upgrades that have been done to that. The gear set, this is a little bit of clever trickery. I'm not quite sure what this is. This might be some form of a lock-up diff, like a limited slip differential. At some point we'll probably open this up just to see what it is and how it works. The drive cups and the gears on this model is upgraded and beefed up. That's a good thing, because on the standard Kraton, the standard crown and pinion, I think, is one of the weakest links on that car. And if you don't fix that, then you're not going to enjoy the car. And I think we've kind of got to a point now with the other Kraton where we've got a handle on the issue with it stripping up those gears. The shocks, I believe, is beefed up. The chassis braces on the standard Kraton, these are all plastic. These are nicely beefed up and made out of aluminium. There's quite a few different, like your hinge pin braces that have been upgraded. The control arms are significantly more beefy than the standard control arms. And it's got this little interesting end point, this little nose on the end of the control arm. And I suspect that has something to do with reinforcing the end of the arm so that the thread of this ball doesn't pull out as easily as it does on the standard car. Then of course a big thing is the chassis. They claim the chassis is made from 7075 T6, and for those that are not aware, 7075 is considered a high-grade aluminium. It's used in the aerospace industry. T6 just refers to the temper of the aluminium. So this is supposed to be a really strong, capable chassis. Let's get it out of the box. Okay, so that's all the extra goodies that's in the bag. There's a little gear wrench in here, a couple of stickers. The book is really nice to have and nice to keep. All your parts and your part numbers are always in there. It's really nice to reference that when you are in need of new parts. I do just want to see what they include here. Some shims. Very important. Add extra shim for tighter gear mesh. So this is what we've experienced on the original Kraton, is that there is a little bit of gear mesh issues and those differentials stripping out. So we will be keeping an eye on this new model to see if this is any better and whether this needs any upgrading of the diff casing itself to maybe stop that flexure and having that two gears push away from each other. But that's quite nice. There's some shims. It's just your normal little gear rings and some Allen keys that they give with. And a couple of screws. So what I find interesting is they don't supply any pinion gear with this. And I was under the impression that there is a pinion gear in here, but that doesn't matter. We are going to use a pinion gear of our own choosing to start with. Whew. That clean new car smell. That is a good looking car. Very, very nice. The shocks feel really good. We've recently tested a new RC car for one of our friends that has no oil in the shocks. It is very bouncy. On this you can really feel that nice dampening effect of the oil in the shocks. Okay, so there's our 7075 chassis plate. It looks really good. I can definitely see how much these control arms are stiffened up. It's got extra thick webbing on it. It looks significantly better than the original control arms that comes on the original Kraton. It looks really good. So in the back we can see there's our upgraded chassis plate. I would actually like to measure this and compare this to the original one, and I also believe this is made of a higher grade of material which should stiffen it up quite a bit. But that looks really, really good. Okay, let's see what's underneath. Okay, that looks good. On the inside, very, very nice. So that's the upgraded aluminium chassis braces down there. It has a really nice aluminium steering horn for the servo horn. I can see the support plate at the top here that holds the two hinges for the steering together. That's also one of the parts that have been upgraded. That looks really nice. So for those that don't know what a roller is a car that comes like this, a complete rolling chassis with no motor, no ESC, no servo and no receiver. So you have to fit all your own electronics. If you are brand new to RCs, this is probably not the way that you should go. If you've got enough electronics going around and you've got some spares, you've got some spare motors, you like doing a little bit of wrenching of your own, you can solder everything that needs to be soldered, then this is actually a really nice way of doing it. If you are a more hands-on person, I think this is a more enjoyable experience than buying a ready-to-race out of the box, because immediately this car becomes personal to you and the way that you put it together. So for this model, these wheels are probably not even going to see the road. These are coming off immediately. We are going to put a set of Pro lines on here. Some really nice Pro lines. Okay, that is going on here. It's significantly wider. Only a little bit taller. I just love the Pro line wheels. I've got Pro lines on most of my RCs. On these, what you do want to do is the little vent holes on the inside. Those little vent holes, you want to cover those up. If the wheels fill up with sand, they become imbalanced. They put a lot of load on your drivetrain. They just don't last. So seal up these breathing holes. Depending on how much these wheels are going to balloon, if I remember previously I had these wheels on my e-Revo, they do balloon quite a bit, but we will strap them. We will put a fish line strapping all the way through this thread, which we will then glue up with a little bit of super glue, and that completely eliminates the ballooning effect on the wheels and it makes them last really, really long. What's also really nice about these Pro lines is this center hub piece over here. This actually bolts down with a whole bunch of screws all the way around, 8 screws. If you ever do manage to strip out the hex inside of this, you do not need to throw away the whole wheel and tire. You can just purchase this new insert in the middle and you can replace that. I think that is a fantastic feature from these Pro lines. They are not cheap, and it is a terrible feeling to have to throw away one or more of these wheels because you've stripped out the hex because it's come loose on the car. So this is going to go straight onto this car from the beginning. This is my style. I like these heavy wheels. The heavy wheel has more inertia and it gives you more control in the air. The car is much more responsive when you want to control in the air what you want the car to do. There's nothing wrong with the originals. They are really, really good tires. I will keep them. But for the sandy, deserty type vibe racing that we do, I really do prefer this type of wheel. So this is going to go on here. For electronics on this car, I'm also going to run a Spectrum 8S ESC. It will only run 6S for the exact same reason. The temperatures here are really high, the electronics suffer a lot. By running an 8S ESC, we know that power delivery wise we will never have an issue, even in the extreme temperatures. For a motor, I'm going to be running a Castle Creations 2200 kV. I love that motor. I had that same motor in my e-Revo. It is a fantastic motor. I run a SkyRC Noble in before remote, which I love. I only have the one remote for all of my cars, and this will just get a new profile on that remote. When the build is finished and all is said and done, then we'll do another update to show how the car came out, all the electronic installation on that, and then I think we will take the two of them out together, the EXB and the original Kraton, and have a really good bash and compare the two. So ultimately, I do believe that the only thing that we really need to look out for in this car is the differentials. I think if the differentials on this car is going to last, then this might be one of the best value for money rollers that you can purchase in this scale size. So just for comparison, let's put the two side by side and just have a quick look at what we have here. Okay, so keeping in mind these are the aftermarket Proline trenches that is on here. So just looking at everything, this mostly seems the same. So even though these are RPM arms, you can see the difference in how much these control arms have been reinforced and beefed up on this car. Very interesting. These front protective covers here, this has been made a little bit wider. That's interesting. That's different. Then obviously the chassis braces here, that's a big one. We can see both of those. The shock towers, front and rear. Just by looking at them though, I can't see that they a different thickness, but I do believe that this is a different grade of aluminium. And if we look at this, just look at this, the width of my hand, this shock tower, look at the width of that bolting pattern over there, and look at the width of the bolt pattern over here. So that is interesting. It seems as if they've moved this in a little bit, and I wonder if they moved the shock position down here where it attaches in also. That's really interesting. At the front it seems to be more or less the same. So that's interesting. I didn't know that they've moved the top position of the shock. Okay, so there's obviously definite differences between the way the shock tower arrangement is done. If we look at this also, this seems to be a bit more beefy, wider over there. The hinge pins, look at the hinge pins over there. That's a significant upgrade that they made over there. What I do like about this, and I've never seen this on any other RC car before, both of the Kratons have it, is it has this little pod where you can put your balance plug from your battery into and actually tie it down with this little rubber. And I think that's kind of a neat feature, because now you don't have your balance plug dangling around getting chowed up by the drive shaft over here. So that's pretty interesting. We've actually spent quite a bit of time talking about this. The best battery trays in the world is the battery trays that uses Velcro straps to keep the batteries down, because you're not limited on your battery sizes. If I look at the e-Revo, for instance, there's only a very specific battery size that will fit in the car and nothing else, and that's actually pretty irritating. So this is fantastic. You can put multiple different sizes of batteries into this car, which is really nice. I really do like that. Let's take a quick look at the underside of these cars, because and just look at this bumper. That is just a fantastic bumper, and it also has this little area in here. So believe it or not, this little shape here is actually designed to compress when you run into something. So this shape here collapses, and it helps to absorb the energy, so that energy doesn't get carried over into the chassis and potentially bends the chassis plate on this car. So let's take a quick look at this. And here you can really see the difference in the lower control arms. Granted, these are the RPM upgrade ones, but they are more or less the same thickness and width than the originals. And the amount of additional webbing and material that they put into these arms are really fantastic if you compare these control arms. So that's really, really nice. Overall, it does look like there is significant upgrades that they've made to this car. So yeah, we are very eager to get this out, take this for a play and see what this does. These two will obviously be very much direct competitors to each other. I'm going to run the same Spectrum ESC, and this motor, this 2200 kV Hobbywing Easy Run, is essentially the same as the Castle 2200 motor that I'm going to run into this. So in terms of electronics, everything is going to be the same. The suspension, if you had to blindfold me, I would not be able to tell you which is which, but what I can tell you is there's more travel. I can feel there's more travel on the suspension on this car. And suspension travel is never a bad thing. And this, obviously, as you can see, is a little bit higher off the ground. And both of the shocks are completely extended, so it's not like this is sagging or anything. So that's pretty cool. So that's it in terms of a comparison. We are very happy to have this in the family. So that's it. We will keep you updated. We'll show you what this looks like when we are finished with all the electronics, and then we will take them out head to head and we'll see which one breaks first. Okay, so we've just taken the time real quickly to fit the Pro lines, and you can immediately see the difference that it makes. So in terms of diameter, I reckon they're both exactly the same, but the width is very obvious and the offset is very obvious. So if we just look at the offset between these two wheels, and in terms of what it gives you on track width, that is pretty significant. So if I'm going to line it up on the side here and get it pretty flush, then you'll see this is more or less with what you end up with in terms of a width difference. So that is a substantial difference in terms of track width if you look at that. The wider stance will always help you a little bit with stability. It might not help you with how crisp or how sharp the car turns in, but fortunately out in the sand, if it doesn't turn well, just give it a bit more power and it'll kick around. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked to see how these two run together, because the electronics are basically going to be identical. I think it's going to be a really good comparison. I don't expect that this chassis is going to make it so much more nimble or better handling or anything. Ultimately, this is about endurance and being a extreme bashing setup that will not break as easily. And we are definitely going to test that. Okay, so I'm running the Fly Sky, the Noble NB4, Savox Servo, the SC1256, Spectrum 8S 160 amp ESC out of my DBXLE. The DBXLE is getting the R-Snake 12S ESC, and that's a Castle Creations 2200 kV 6S. So this will only ever run 6S, but the 8S ESC in this weather conditions does a really good job of not killing itself. It's so clean, I don't want to dirty it up. There we go. It's officially second hand.
Beauty. Second hand.
Second hand. It's officially second hand.
What? So, Renier, what do you think about the wheels? I think that is what's giving you that backflip capability.
Yes. The mass
and
on that wheel.
and the control. Look at that. That one was about 90 degrees to the ground.
It was gonna hit the ground nose down, and you just flip the throttle and it just goes parallel with the ground.
So,
The
yeah.
mass and just that wheels gives you so much control. It's a little bit overgeared. So
You look also overgeared. Look at
I'm
your
also overgeared.
sweat stains.
It's a little bit overgeared, so it's just a little warm. But it is lasting and holding up beautifully. And I'm amazed by the control.
You just need to learn how to use the batteries properly. Battery tray, because this needs to go over here so that it doesn't slide out.
I know, but the problem is that those two batteries don't fit underneath this tray.
It does. You just pull it up, idiot.
So why didn't you tell me this, you idiot? There we go. See guys, and that's how you use this battery tray.
No, this thing is amazing. These tires.
Yeah, these tires are ridiculous.
I think my Kraton also needs.
Yeah, the control is unbelievable. I thought the e-Revo had control. It doesn't compared to this. This control is crazy.
Okay guys, so we're about 2 weeks later now, after having received the Kraton 6S EXB, and I feel that we have now sufficiently tested this car compared to the V4, V5, the other version, the one that we looked at the beginning of the video, to kind of come to a conclusion on whether the EXB can really be called the EXB or not. So the one obvious thing right here is, so the Badlands, there's no two ways about it. These wheels are phenomenal. I absolutely love them. Just the amount of squish that you've got in these, they're like additional shock absorbers. These things just eat up the terrain. The mass of the wheel, some might consider to be a problem, but the mass of the wheel gives you so much response and air control that it's unbelievable. So the very first time this car ran, it was hopelessly overgeared. We had a 20-tooth pinion on here. The electronics won't survive that, especially in our harsh conditions. It easily goes to 50 degrees Celsius where we are. It is the summertime at the moment, and even though it's summertime and it's ridiculously hot, we still go out religiously every Saturday morning and play as if our lives depend on it. So, you know, there's no stopping for us. We play all out through the year. Doesn't matter how warm it is. But the cars do suffer, and the electronics suffer especially. So both the Kratons run this Spectrum 8S ESC, which is just beautiful. We never have any thermal throttling or any thermal cutout on this ESC. I do have this upgraded 24 volt dual ball bearing fan that I got on AliExpress. This little fan is really potent. And I do believe that helps a lot to keep the motor cool when we bash them that hard. I've come to the conclusion now that any bashing car in a harsh environment like where we are in the desert, you need a cooling fan on your motor. The very first thing that broke on this car, let's take a look at this. There's a little stub. It pokes through the shock tower, and it's got a nut that goes on the back like this. That is a 3mm stub. The very first thing on this car that broke was a very bad landing, like a lawn dart nosedive, and it broke that little 3mm threaded stub clean off on this side. There are upgrade parts available for this, but because we are trying to move to the point where we manufacture as many parts as we can for ourselves, because we really enjoy the technical side of it and we want to save the money, is I put this little stub in the lathe, turned off the little nub, the remaining nub from that 3mm stub, and then bored and tapped this to a M4, and now we run an M4 Allen cap from the back in here. So it's an upgrade from an M3 to an M4, and all you do is you drill the hole in the shock tower from a 3mm to a 4mm. And this seems to be a really good solution if you have a lathe and you have the capability to bore and tap on your lathe, or whichever way. I'm pretty sure if you're desperate enough, you could do this without a lathe or without a milling machine if you were really motivated to get to the solution. And this works really well. The upgrade parts are available, but again, that just saves me whatever the money for the upgrade part is. So I think that really is a good solution. The second thing that broke on this car was a real surprise to me. So these are the drive cups that go into the diff. Front and back are identical. Because this is the EXB, this stub on the drive cup is slightly thicker than the standard Kratons. So the other Kraton we had in the beginning of the video, and it's after 2 years, that Kraton actually broke a corner out of this drive cup. It broke it out pretty badly, and we'll show you a picture of that. And our cars need to run every Saturday morning. So we thought it was a good idea to see if we could manufacture our own drive cup. The first thing is we immediately ordered replacement cups, and we thought, EXB, let's just order the EXB part, it's going to be a better cup, without really thinking what makes the EXB cup different than the standard cup. So this stub here is oversized compared to the standard Kraton. And as soon as this arrived, we immediately realized this is not going to work on the standard Kraton because this is substantially thicker. But I've not seen this break at all, but we've now seen the outside of this drive cup fracture and break twice. Second time out with this car, we broke the corner out of this drive cup on the right front, and that's something that we've never really seen before. Why do they mill this flat on both sides of this drive cup? It really isn't worth saving that 1, maybe 2 gram of weight for how much weaker they make this. So I'm going to show you a close-up shot of this. Where they mill the top and the bottom flat, they thin out this webbing so much that they take all the strength out of the drive cup. So not sure what the reason is why they mill it flat. You'll see on the picture or the video of the cup that we made ourselves out of 01 tool steel and then hardened afterwards. We did not mill this flat into the pot, we left it perfectly round, and that cup has been running now very successfully for a couple of weekends of really hard bashing, and we've had no issues with it. So we think we might have come up with a solution for ourselves for these cups. So I think in the future we'll be making the cups ourselves as well out of that 01 tool steel, and it works beautifully. So that's the 2 things that have failed on this car. That little stub broke off, and the drive cup on the outside right front fractured. That is it. The one thing that it seems they've not solved on this car, which has plagued all the previous Kratons, is the fact that when you land these in a very particular way, we don't know if it's with the wheels turned in or out, if it's with the suspension at full extension or full compression, but the drive shaft pops out of the cup. It pops out of the cup and then it falls to the side, and then you've got no drive on that wheel. We don't understand under what dynamic conditions that actually happens. There is ways to get around it. I've seen a lot of people will actually shorten the control arms, but what we've been thinking is if we can make our own cups, then we might just make the cup 3, 4, maybe 5 millimeters longer to just give it a little bit more area for that ball end of the drive shaft to live in, and maybe that solves the problem of the drive shaft popping out on the side. What we do want to do still in terms of upgrades is I just upgraded the carriers on the outside, on the front and the back. I don't see this as a necessary upgrade for the Kraton. I see that as a necessary upgrade for any car you have, especially the dusty, sandy environments that we are in. There's a lot of very fine, salty sodium sand dust that gets into the bearings. What happens is when the bearing seizes up, it starts spinning the outer race of the bearing, and then that friction melts away the carriers on the outside. It completely melts it away. Whether it's a Traxxas or a Kraton or a Losi, it happens to all of them. So to get an upgraded aluminium carrier, I believe, especially, it's got larger bearings, substantially larger bearings. It's a larger load bearing surface. they perform so much better, they last so much better, and even if the bearing seizes up entirely, it doesn't damage the carrier. You just knock them out, put new bearings in, and it's off to the races again. You'll also notice that these wheels are now strapped. Stunning. We strap all our wheels. It stops them from ballooning. It takes the centrifugal force out of the wheel so that you don't pull the glue from the rim. These specific wheels, I really love them. They are not cheap. What has already happened is, and it's the first time I ever see this, these hubs is removable. I split the one hub on the hex, straight down a line on that hex, just exploded. You do get upgrade aluminium centerpieces for these Pro lines, which then solves a lot of those problems for you. So that's more or less the conclusion. Is it awesome? It's absolutely awesome. In terms of value for money, I think if you are someone that already has electronics lying around, if you already have a good motor and a good ESC, this rolling chassis EXB, I think, is an absolute bargain for what you get if you compare all the upgrades and the trickeries relative to the previous models that don't have all the EXB upgrades. It's really, really good value for money if you can add your own ESC and motor to it. I would highly recommend anyone that wants an 8th scale basher. I've played with many different 8th scale bashers, and this is hands down my favorite. If I could only have one, this would probably be it. Okay, so that's it for our comparison, old versus new. We've played with it, we've trialed it. Is it gonna break? Absolutely. If you want an RC car that doesn't break, then you're not gonna find an RC car. If you don't wanna work on RC cars, then unfortunately you wanna be in the wrong hobby. These require hands-on attention, constant. Stuff fails, stuff gets old, stuff gets worn out, bearings fail, wheels tear, electronics burn out, wires get ripped out, you crash the thing and your battery flies away and damages. That is expectation that you should have if you get into this hobby. So that's going to be all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Please follow along, subscribe, and we hope that you enjoy the journey with us. Thank you. Bye-bye.